She was born into a world of darkness. From the very first moment, her eyes could not see the colors, the shapes, or the faces around her. While other children learned to recognize the world by sight, she had to rely on sounds, touches, and scents. Every small detail was a story told in ways others could not always understand. People around her tried to help, but many did not know how to connect. Her parents loved her deeply, but worry clouded their hearts. They wondered how she would grow, what she would do, and if she could ever live a life filled with independence and happiness. As a child, she learned quickly that the world was not built for someone like her. Doors were always left open or closed too tightly. Conversations often included words she could not picture, and instructions were confusing when they relied on sight. Friends sometimes left her behind during games or school activities. They did not mean to be cruel, but they could not imagine her joining in the way they did. This left her feeling isolated and different, though she never admitted it out loud. She learned early on to hide the sadness in her heart, smiling when asked, pretending everything was normal. Inside, however, she longed for a way to show the world that she was more than her. Blindness, her parents tried to give her the best life possible. They read stories aloud, describing scenes in great detail so she could imagine them. They bought toys with textures and sounds. They took her to the park, where the rustling of leaves, the songs of birds, and the warmth of sunlight on her skin became her senses' playground. Even though she could not see, she learned to recognize the difference between a warm morning and a cool evening. The sounds of footsteps, the changing wind, and the laughter of children became her map of the world. But despite all this love and care, she often felt lonely. She wanted to create, to express, to shine in some way. Yet no one could tell her how. School was another challenge. She attended classes with other children, but everything seemed harder for her. Teachers tried to help, but textbooks were written for seeing eyes, and assignments assumed a knowledge she could not easily access. Other children sometimes whispered, sometimes stared, sometimes avoided her. She learned to listen very carefully, to understand more than what was said. Her mind became sharp, and her memory became strong. She remembered voices, footsteps, smells, and patterns. She could identify a person just by the sound of their shoes or the way they laughed. It was a skill she learned out of necessity, but it made her different in a way that few appreciated. Despite all these challenges, she found small moments of joy. Listening to music was one of her favorite escapes. Her parents had a small radio, and she would sit for hours, feeling every note, letting the melodies flow through her. She could hum along, imagine the instruments, and feel the emotions they carried. Music was the first language she truly understood, a language that spoke directly to her heart. It gave her hope and comfort when the world seemed too difficult to handle. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could almost imagine the scenes from the stories her parents read to her, painted in her mind with sounds and feelings rather than images. As she grew older, the whispers and doubts of others became louder. People said she might never live independently, never find a meaningful job, never truly connect with the world in a way that mattered. Even when she tried to participate, they lowered their expectations, treating her as fragile, incapable, and limited. She could sense the pity in their voices, the doubts in their eyes, and the hesitation in their gestures. It was painful, but she refused to let it crush her. Somewhere deep inside, she believed she could be more than what they thought. She wanted to prove herself, but she did not yet know how. Her daily life followed a routine, safe but predictable. She walked to school with the guidance of her parents, navigated the home carefully, and spent quiet hours reading Braille books or listening to tapes. Friends were few, and interactions were often awkward. She longed for something exciting, something that would allow her to show her abilities in a way the world could not ignore. The idea seemed distant, almost impossible, yet the desire burned brightly. She dreamed of a life where people would see her strength, her intelligence, her heart, rather than focusing on what she could not do. One ordinary day, a sound changed everything. She was passing by a small community center when a melody drifted through the open doors. It was delicate, powerful, and full of emotion. The notes seemed to wrap around her, touching something deep inside. She stood frozen, listening. Each note told a story she had never heard before, a story of hope, pain, and beauty all at once. She could not identify the player or even see the piano, but she could feel it in her soul. It was the first time she had experienced music not just as background or entertainment, but as a force that could move her heart entirely. For the first time, she felt a spark of possibility, a hint that perhaps her life could change. From that day forward, she returned to the community center whenever she could. She wanted to hear the music again, to feel that emotion that had shaken her. The player, a kind-hearted teacher, noticed her curiosity and asked if she would like to try touching the piano. Hesitant but eager, she placed her fingers on the keys. The moment they pressed down, a vibration ran through her hands. She tried simple notes, feeling the response of the instrument. It was strange, new, and wonderful. She wanted to create the music herself, to make the notes speak her feelings. For the first time, she felt a sense of possibility she had never known before. People around her doubted. Some laughed, saying it would never work. A blind girl learning piano? Impossible. Others simply ignored her, continuing with their routines as if she were invisible. Even her own mind sometimes filled with doubt, asking if she really could achieve something so difficult. But the pull of the music was too strong. Every sound she heard, every vibration under her fingertips became a reason to keep trying. She began practicing in secret, using the piano as a bridge to a world she had only imagined. Slowly, hesitantly, her fingers began to find patterns, chords, and melodies. Each day she improved, and the music became a part of her identity. Her family watched with a mix of surprise and pride. They had always supported her, but they did not expect that she would find such passion and talent. Seeing her light up when she played, hearing her laugh at her own mistakes, and feeling her determination, they realized that she had found her purpose. It was not about fame, success, or recognition. It was about connection. Connection with music, with herself, and with the world that had often underestimated her. The piano gave her a voice when words were not enough, a way to express emotions that had long been trapped inside. School life continued, but she now had something that no one could take away from her. Her mind, once focused solely on navigating obstacles, now also dreamed of possibilities. She could imagine performing for others, sharing her music, and showing the world that being blind was not a limitation. Every practice session strengthened her confidence. Her fingers became more agile, and her understanding of music deepened. With each note, she felt a little closer to the person she wanted to become, someone strong, capable, and full of life. As days turned into weeks, the piano became her sanctuary. It was a place where she could escape doubts, pain, and loneliness. It was where she could create beauty from nothing, a beauty that spoke to anyone willing to listen. No longer just a child living in darkness, she began to feel like a girl with potential, a girl whose future could be written in melodies. And though no one yet knew how far she would go, the first step had been taken. Her life, once quiet and limited, now held a promise of transformation. All it took was one sound, one note, one moment of courage to open the door to a world of possibility. From the moment she touched the piano, a spark of hope ignited within her. She could feel the vibrations through her fingertips and sense the depth of sound. At first, it was confusing. The keys felt like a maze, some higher, some lower, some producing sharp sounds she did not understand. But each note, each vibration, told a story. She began experimenting, pressing random keys, listening to how the notes combined, how they flowed into each other. Slowly, the chaotic sounds started to make sense. She discovered patterns, rhythms, and sequences. For the first time, she felt in control of something in the world that had always seemed too difficult. Her first lessons were difficult. The teacher guided her by hand, placing her fingers on the right keys and explaining the flow of music in ways she could sense. Every day she'll return to the piano, eager to practice. She stumbled often, her fingers moving incorrectly, producing harsh, clashing sounds. Yet each mistake became a lesson. She began to understand that music was not just about hitting the correct keys, but about feeling, timing, and emotion. Slowly, she started to play simple tunes, songs that she had heard on the radio or on tapes. She memorized them, feeling the music in her mind before her hands moved. The world of sound became her map, guiding her through every note, every pause, every chord. Her family watched in awe as her fingers moved across the keys. They could see her excitement, the joy she felt when she produced a sound that was beautiful and complete. They could hear the pride in her voice as she played a song correctly for the first time. They encouraged her, but they also worried. They knew the path ahead would not be easy. Learning music without sight was a monumental task, and she would face challenges they could not imagine. Yet, they could not deny that the piano had awakened something extraordinary within her. Something that gave her a sense of purpose she had never known before. At school, she found herself daydreaming about music during lessons. Even when others whispered or stared, she focused on the rhythm, imagining melodies while following her assignments. Music became her secret strength, something that no one could take from her. She practiced in small, hidden moments, sometimes at home when no one was watching. She experimented with chords, trying to create sounds that reflected her emotions. Sometimes the music came easily, flowing naturally from her fingertips. Other times it was frustrating with clumsy fingers and incorrect notes. But she never gave up. Each challenge was a puzzle she was determined to solve. Her first real success came when she managed to play a simple song entirely by memory. She remembered the pattern of the keys, the feeling of each note, and the rhythm that connected them. When she finished, she could hear the music resonating through the room, clear and beautiful. She felt a surge of pride and excitement. For the first time, she realized that she was capable of creating something that could touch others, even without being able to see. Her teacher was impressed, noting her dedication and natural sense of rhythm. Others began to notice her commitment and determination, though they still did not fully understand the depth of her talent. The more she practiced, the more confident she became. She began to compose her own small pieces, simple melodies that expressed her feelings. She experimented with tempo, volume, and emotion, learning how to make the piano sing in ways that reflected her inner world. Each day brought new challenges, new discoveries, and new triumphs. Music was no longer just a hobby. It had become a part of her identity. She realized that the piano could communicate feelings that words could not capture. It became a mirror of her soul, reflecting her struggles, her hopes, her dreams. Despite the progress, there were moments of doubt. Sometimes her hands would not cooperate, producing wrong notes or clashing sounds. Sometimes the rhythm she imagined in her head did not match what she could physically play. She felt frustration and disappointment, but she also felt determination. She learned to be patient with herself, understanding that mastery required time, effort, and persistence. Each failure became a step toward improvement. Each mistake was an opportunity to learn, to refine, and to grow stronger. Slowly, her confidence grew, and her music began to reflect her personality, passionate, expressive, and full of life. Her friends and classmates began to take notice. Some were curious, asking her to play for them. Others were skeptical, wondering how a blind girl could produce such music. When she played, they were often surprised, sometimes even shocked, by the beauty and emotion in her music. It was no longer just about her learning to play. It was about connecting with others, touching their hearts, and showing them that ability and talent were not defined by sight. Each performance, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in herself and her music. At home, she began to spend more time with the piano, exploring new sounds and techniques. She learned about different styles of music from classical to contemporary and tried to replicate them. She discovered the unique voice that the piano could give her, a voice that could speak without words. Her parents supported her every step of the way, providing encouragement, guidance, and love. They saw the transformation in their daughter, a child who once seemed limited by her blindness, now becoming someone unstoppable. Filled with creativity and passion, her dedication to music began to influence other areas of her life. She became more confident in social situations, more willing to take risks, and more determined to pursue her dreams. She realized that her blindness did not define her. Her choices, effort, and courage did. The piano had become a tool of empowerment, a way to express herself and prove to herself and others that she could overcome any obstacle. She no longer felt constrained by her limitations. Instead, she felt liberated by her abilities. Each day brought new challenges and achievements. She practiced tirelessly, learning more complex pieces, experimenting with harmonies, and creating her own compositions. Her fingers became agile, her sense of timing precise, and her understanding of music deepened. She began to dream of performing for larger audiences, of sharing her music with the world, and of inspiring others who faced difficulties similar to her own. The piano had opened a door to a world she had never imagined, a world where her voice could be heard and her talent could shine through music. She discovered the power of determination, patience, and belief in oneself. She learned that obstacles could be overcome with effort, creativity, and courage. The journey was not easy, but it was meaningful, shaping her character and strengthening her spirit. She began to see herself not as someone limited by blindness, but as someone capable of achieving great things, someone whose talent and heart could touch the lives of others. By the end of this period of discovery, she had transformed. The girl who once lived quietly in a world of darkness now carried light within her. A light born from music, determination, and self-belief. She was no longer just a listener. She was a creator, a dreamer, and a performer. The piano had changed her life, giving her a voice, a purpose, and a path forward. And though many challenges still lay ahead, she now faced them with courage, confidence, and the knowledge that she had already achieved something remarkable. The journey had just begun, but the foundation was strong. Her story of transformation through music was unfolding beautifully. Her journey with the piano was not smooth. The initial excitement gradually met the reality of hard work, discipline, and frustration. Each day she spent at the keys demanded patience and effort. At times her hands felt clumsy and unresponsive. Notes that should have flowed together sounded awkward or jumbled. Sometimes she wanted to give up, to leave the piano alone and retreat into the quiet comfort of silence. But a voice inside her reminded her of the joy she felt the first time she touched the keys. That small spark kept her coming back. She began to realize that learning without sight required a new way of thinking. She could not glance at sheet music or watch someone's fingers. She had to rely entirely on memory, muscle memory, and listening. Every practice session was a challenge to her mind and body. She would close her eyes even tighter to focus on the sound, letting each vibration guide her fingers. It was exhausting, but she found satisfaction in each small improvement. When she played a sequence correctly, when the notes sounded as she imagined them, a deep sense of accomplishment filled her heart. Her teacher remained patient, encouraging her while pushing her to grow. Sometimes he would guide her hands, but more often he allowed her to explore independently. He taught her to feel the rhythm in her body, to sense the beat in the air around her, and to listen to every subtle change in sound. These lessons became tools she carried with her everywhere. Music began to live inside her, in her heart and mind, rather than just on the piano. She started to notice patterns in everyday life: the rhythm of rain, the melody of birds, the harmony in voices. All of these sounds influenced her playing, helping her create music that was both natural and expressive. Frustration often came when her fingers failed to respond. Chords that sounded simple in her mind became tangled in reality. Notes slipped, timing faltered, and sometimes she would hit a wrong key repeatedly. In those moments, she would feel a sting of disappointment, wishing she could see and correct mistakes instantly. But she learned a valuable lesson. Mistakes were not failures, but stepping stones. Each error taught her something new about the piano, about herself, and about the power of persistence. Slowly, she began to embrace imperfection, understanding that growth was more important than flawless execution. Outside the piano, the world still underestimated her. Some friends and classmates still doubted her abilities, whispering about what she could not do. Occasionally, she overheard people saying that music would never be a real option for someone blind. At first, these words hurt deeply. She wondered if her efforts were in vain, if the world would ever see her true potential. But with each note she played, each melody she mastered, she proved to herself that the opinions of others could not define her. She began to develop a quiet confidence, a belief that her talent and determination mattered more than doubt and pity. Practice became her refuge. When she sat at the piano, the outside world faded away. Time seemed to slow, and she could immerse herself in the sounds, exploring new melodies, experimenting with tempo, and discovering ways to express emotion. She began composing simple pieces, letting her feelings guide her hands. Sometimes the music was joyful, other times somber, but it was always her own. She learned that music could carry the story of her heart, something words alone could not do. Every session strengthened not only her skills, but also her sense of identity. Her family noticed the transformation. The once quiet, tentative child was now determined, focused, and expressive. They celebrated her small victories, a sequence played perfectly, a melody remembered accurately, a piece composed entirely from memory. Their pride grew, but they also understood that the path ahead would not be easy. They encouraged her to persevere, to practice diligently, and to continue believing in herself. They knew that the challenges she faced required courage beyond what many people could imagine. And they admired the strength she displayed each day. As her skills improved, she encountered new challenges. More advanced pieces required complex fingerings, faster movements, and precise timing. At times she felt overwhelmed, unsure if she could master these demanding compositions. She worked tirelessly, breaking each piece into sections, practicing slowly and gradually increasing speed. Her patience and persistence paid off. Slowly, the music began to flow more naturally. Her fingers moving with confidence, and her understanding of harmony deepened. The piano became an extension of herself, a tool through which she could communicate emotions too deep for words. Her teacher noticed a significant change. She was no longer just learning to play. She was interpreting music, adding her own style and feeling to every note. He encouraged her to continue exploring, to trust her instincts, and to express herself freely. She learned the importance of emotion in music, realizing that technical skill alone was not enough. The beauty of a performance came from the heart, from the ability to make listeners feel something profound. This lesson became central to her practice, guiding every chord, every pause, every melody she created. Social interactions also began to shift. Some classmates who had doubted her started to listen differently when she played. They were surprised by the depth and emotion she could convey. Some were curious, asking her to demonstrate what she had learned. Others were inspired, realizing that limitations did not define potential. Slowly, she began to feel a sense of acceptance and respect. Not because she demanded it, but because her talent spoke for itself. Music had become not just a personal sanctuary, but a bridge connecting her to the world in ways she had never experienced before. Her journey was not without emotional struggle. At times, the pressure to succeed weighed heavily. She questioned her abilities and wondered if she could meet the high standards she set for herself. Nights were spent replaying mistakes in her mind, trying to understand where she went wrong and how to improve. Yet each morning brought renewed determination. She reminded herself of the joy she felt when the music resonated, the satisfaction of mastering a difficult piece, and the thrill of expressing something uniquely hers. These thoughts fueled her persistence. She returned to the piano with renewed energy. Through these struggles, she discovered resilience. She learned that success was not measured by immediate results, but by consistent effort and determination. She realized that her blindness did not limit her creativity or her ability to express emotion. In fact, it heightened her other senses, making her more attuned to the nuances of sound, rhythm, and harmony. Each day of practice brought a deeper connection to music, a greater understanding of herself, and a growing belief that she could achieve remarkable things. Her compositions began to reflect her personal journey. Simple melodies grew into more complex arrangements, capturing the emotions of her experiences: frustration, hope, determination, and joy. Each piece told a story that she could not express in words alone. Music became her language, her way of communicating with the world. She realized that even without sight, she could create beauty that touched hearts, inspired others, and left a lasting impression. This realization strengthened her resolve to continue. to practice diligently, and to explore the full potential of her talent. By the end of this stage, she had transformed. The struggles that once seemed insurmountable had become part of her growth. She had learned patience, resilience, and the power of persistence. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was an extension of herself, a tool for self-expression and empowerment. She had discovered that true mastery required not just talent, but dedication, courage, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. Each day at the keys brought her closer to realizing her full potential and sharing her music with the world. After months of practice, the day finally came for her first public performance. It was a small community event, held in a hall filled with curious neighbors, friends, teachers, and a few strangers. The piano she had practiced on for months was there, waiting for her, shining under the lights. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of excitement, fear, and anticipation. She knew that this moment could change how people saw her, but she also worried about making mistakes in front of so many eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she positioned them over the keys, but she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the music guide her. As she began to play, the hall fell silent. The first notes were soft, tentative, but as her confidence grew, the melody became stronger and more expressive. Each chord she pressed resonated through the room, capturing the attention of everyone present. People leaned forward, listening carefully, some with tears in their eyes. The music told a story, one that words could not fully express. It spoke of struggle, hope, and courage. For those listening, it was impossible not to feel the depth of emotion pouring from the young pianist. Her fingers moved across the keys with a grace that seemed almost magical. Every note was deliberate, every pause meaningful. She was fully immersed in the music, unaware of the gazes fixed upon her. The audience could see her concentration, the subtle movements of her hands, and the expressions on her face. They could sense the journey she had undertaken, the countless hours of practice, the challenges she had faced, and the determination that had brought her to this moment. For many, it was a revelation that someone blind could create such beauty and convey such emotion through music. Some in the audience had doubted her abilities, expecting mistakes or awkward pauses. But as the performance continued, those doubts vanished. They could hear her talent, her skill, and her emotional depth. It was not just technical proficiency, it was artistry. The music flowed effortlessly, each piece telling its own story, carrying the listeners through a range of emotions. The room seemed to disappear, leaving only the piano, the notes, and the girl who had transformed her, challenges into something extraordinary. Her family watched with a mixture of pride and awe. They had seen her struggle, seen her persistence, and known her potential. But even they were moved beyond words by what she had achieved. They held their breath with every note, feeling the emotion and connection in ways they had never anticipated. Tears filled their eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming beauty and power of her performance. In that moment, they knew that her talent could not be measured by limitations. It could only be experienced. The performance was not just about showing skill. It was about telling her story. Each piece reflected a part of her journey, the loneliness of childhood, the struggles of learning, the triumphs of persistence, and the joy of discovery. The audience could feel these emotions, even without knowing the details of her life. Music had become her voice, a voice that could reach hearts, break barriers, and change perceptions. She had not only performed, she had communicated in a way that words could never achieve. As she played the final piece, the hall was filled with an almost tangible silence. The last note lingered in the air, echoing in the hearts of everyone present. When she finished, there was a moment of stillness, as if no one could believe what they had just heard. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the room. It started quietly, then grew louder, stronger, more enthusiastic. People stood up, clapping and cheering, some wiping tears from their eyes. The sound of appreciation and admiration was overwhelming. She could feel the energy of the room, the recognition of her talent, and the acknowledgement of her hard work. It was a moment she would never forget. Some strangers came forward, praising her performance, asking her questions about how she had learned, and expressing their admiration. Teachers and neighbors congratulated her, telling her that she had inspired them and changed their perception of what someone blind could achieve. Even those who had doubted her abilities were now forced to acknowledge her extraordinary talent. In that moment, she realized the power of music, not just as an art form, but as a bridge between hearts, a way to overcome prejudice, and a means to demonstrate strength and courage. Her confidence soared after the performance. She had faced her fears, shared her music with others, and received validation that went beyond words. She realized that this was only the beginning. The world was full of opportunities to share her talent, and that her journey was far from over. The experience taught her that courage and determination could break barriers, that persistence could turn doubt into admiration, and that passion could overcome obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. Back home, she reflected on the performance. The nervousness, the doubt, the fear, all of it had transformed into triumph. She had proven to herself and others that her blindness was not a limitation, but a part of her unique journey. She felt a sense of pride, not just in her skill, but in her ability to persevere, to face challenges, and to express herself fully. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a tool of empowerment, a source of joy, and a means to connect with the world in ways she had never imagined. Her teacher was especially proud. He noted how she had grown not only as a musician but also as a person. She had learned to trust herself, to express emotion through music, and to communicate in a way that touched others. He encouraged her to continue performing, to explore new compositions, and to share her story with a wider audience. The experience had shown her the importance of courage, preparation, and emotional connection in every performance. It had also taught her that talent alone was not enough. The heart behind the music was what truly mattered. The audience's reaction reinforced an important lesson. Belief in oneself can transform perceptions. Those who had doubted her abilities now saw her in a new light, not as someone limited by blindness, but as someone capable of extraordinary achievements. Their applause, admiration, and encouragement became a source of motivation, inspiring her to continue practicing, learning, and growing. She understood that the impact of her music went beyond technical skill. It had the power to inspire, uplift, and change lives. After that day, opportunities began to appear. Invitations to perform at other events, suggestions to participate in competitions, and offers to collaborate with other musicians started to come her way. She realized that the world was more open than she had imagined, and that her talent could be recognized and appreciated. Yet, she remained grounded, remembering the hard work, persistence, and dedication that had brought her to this point. She knew that success required continuous effort, learning, practice. Her experience at the first performance changed her perspective on life. She had learned that challenges could be transformed into strengths, that fear could be overcome with courage, and that determination could lead to extraordinary achievements. She had discovered the power of music to communicate, inspire, and connect people. Most importantly, she had learned to believe in herself, to trust her abilities, to recognize that her limitations did not define her potential as she continued to practice and perform. She carried with her the memory of that first audience, the silence, the emotion, and the applause. It became a source of strength, reminding her of what she could achieve and inspiring her to reach even higher. She understood that her journey was not just about playing the piano, but about expressing her story, touching hearts, and proving that courage, passion, and persistence could overcome even the greatest obstacles. That day marked a turning point, a moment when the world began to see her not as a blind girl, but as a musician, a creator, and a source of inspiration. After her first successful performance, her life began to change in ways she had never imagined. Opportunities to perform at different events and gatherings started to appear, and people who had once doubted her abilities now admired and encouraged her. With every performance, she grew more confident and her music touched more hearts. She realized that the piano was no longer just an instrument. It had become a bridge to the world, a way to communicate, inspire, and connect with others. She embraced this new journey with determination, knowing that each note she played carried her story forward, her daily routine shifted to accommodate more practice and preparation for performances. She spent hours each day perfecting her pieces, exploring new melodies, and experimenting with harmonies. Her dedication was unwavering. Even when her hands were sore or her mind tired, she returned to the piano with persistence. She knew that true mastery required patience and effort, and she welcomed every challenge as an opportunity to grow. Music had become a part of her identity, shaping her personality, strengthening her resilience, fueling her dreams. The support from her family remained a cornerstone of her journey. They celebrated every achievement, large or small, and encouraged her to pursue her passion fully. They attended each performance, clapping with pride and cheering her on. Their belief in her abilities reinforced her own self-confidence, reminding her that she was capable of achieving greatness despite any limitations. Their love and guidance provided a safe foundation from which she could explore her talent and reach for new heights. She also became an inspiration to others. People admired her courage, perseverance, and skill. Friends, classmates, and strangers alike began to see that limitations were only obstacles to overcome, not barriers to success. She shared her story with those willing to listen, emphasizing the importance of belief in oneself and the power of determination. Young children, especially those facing their own challenges, looked up to her as a role model. Her music and her story became a source of hope, encouraging others to pursue their dreams with dedication and resilience. Through her growing recognition, she discovered the power of music to transform lives. Her performances were no longer just about technical skill. They were about connection. She learned to play with emotion, to tell stories through her melodies, and to reach listeners in ways that words could not. Each audience she performed for experienced the depth of feeling she poured into her music. She realized that her talent could inspire, heal, and uplift, giving people a sense of beauty and hope in their own lives. Alongside her growing reputation, she faced new challenges. Expectations increased, and pressure to perform well became more intense. At times, she doubted herself, wondering if she could meet the demands placed upon her. But she remembered the early days of struggle, the countless hours of practice, and the joy she felt when she first touched the piano. These memories reminded her of her strength and resilience. She continued to work diligently, understanding that her progress was built on perseverance, dedication, and love for her craft. She began to explore more advanced compositions, pushing herself beyond her comfort zone. She experimented with different genres, from classical to modern pieces, learning new techniques and discovering new ways to express emotion. Each challenge expanded her skills and deepened her understanding of music. She found joy not only in performing familiar pieces, but also in creating her own compositions, allowing her unique voice to shine through. The piano had become an extension of herself, a way to express her thoughts, emotions, and experiences in a way that others could feel and understand. Her success also brought opportunities to mentor others. She shared her knowledge and experience with young students, guiding them through the process of learning music and encouraging them to overcome obstacles. She emphasized patience, practice, and emotional connection, teaching them that talent alone was not enough to achieve greatness. By helping others, she discovered a new sense of fulfillment. She realized that her journey was not just about personal achievement, but also about empowering others to find their own voices and strengths. With time, she began to perform in larger venues, reaching wider audiences. Each performance strengthened her confidence, honed her skills, and deepened her emotional connection to music. She became known not just as a talented pianist, but as a symbol of courage, determination, and hope. Her story inspired people to look beyond limitations and to recognize the potential within themselves. She learned that true success was measured not by fame or recognition, but by the impact she could have on others and the joy she could bring through her art. Through her journey, she also learned important life lessons. She discovered that persistence could overcome fear, that belief in oneself could transform doubt into achievement, and that passion could turn obstacles into opportunities. She understood that challenges were not setbacks, but stepping stones to growth and self-discovery. The piano had taught her discipline, patience, creativity, and resilience. More importantly, it had taught her that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Her relationships deepened as well. Friends and family appreciated her not only for her talent, but also for her perseverance, kindness, and courage. She developed strong bonds with fellow musicians, learning from their experiences and sharing her own. Together, they created music that was richer, more dynamic, and more expressive. These connections reinforced her belief in the power of collaboration, empathy, and shared passion. As she reflected on her journey, she realized how far she had come. From a quiet child living in darkness, uncertain of her place in the world, she had grown into a confident, talented, and inspiring young woman. She had discovered her purpose, found her voice, and touched the lives of countless people through her music. The piano had changed everything, opening doors she never thought possible and helping her realize that her potential was limitless. Her story continued to inspire others long after her performances ended. People admired her dedication, her courage, and her ability to overcome challenges. She became a living example of the power of perseverance, showing that limitations do not define potential and that passion, hard work, and belief in oneself can transform lives. She understood that her journey was not just her own, but a source of inspiration and hope for everyone willing to listen and believe through music. She had not only transformed her own life but also influenced the lives of others. She had proven that talent and determination could overcome obstacles, that creativity could thrive even in adversity, and that courage could inspire and uplift. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a symbol of hope, strength, and self-expression. Her journey showed that anyone, regardless of limitations, could achieve greatness if they followed their passion and persevered through challenges in the end. She had learned the most important lesson of all: the power to change one's life lies within oneself. The piano had been the key that unlocked her potential, but it was her dedication, courage, and belief in herself that transformed her world. She continued to play, to create, and to inspire, knowing that her music carried her story, her heart, and her spirit to everyone who listened. Her journey was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the transformative power of music, and the limitless possibilities that await those who dare to believe in themselves. After years of performing and gaining recognition, she began to realize that her journey with music was far from over. The piano had given her a voice, but she felt a growing desire to push her boundaries further. She wanted to explore not only new melodies and compositions, but also the ways her music could touch even more lives. Her passion grew, and she started seeking opportunities to perform in larger venues, collaborate with other musicians, and even compose pieces that were deeply personal and expressive. Each day became a chance to challenge herself and refine her art. Traveling to different cities and performing for diverse audiences brought new experiences. She discovered that each crowd was unique, reacting differently to her music. In some places, people were quiet, listening intently, absorbing every note. In others, audiences were expressive, clapping, cheering, and showing emotion openly. She learned to read the energy of the room, to adjust her playing to connect with listeners in ways that were meaningful to them. This understanding of human emotion became as important to her as mastering the technical aspects of music. With every performance, she felt a deeper connection to her own emotions and experiences. The piano became not only a tool for expression, but also a mirror reflecting her inner thoughts and feelings. She began to write original compositions inspired by her life, her struggles, and the challenges she had overcome. Each piece carried a story, a journey of resilience, hope, and courage. She discovered that music could communicate feelings that words often fail to capture, and this realization motivated her to continue creating and sharing her art. Her reputation as a skilled and passionate pianist continued to grow. Invitations to perform at prestigious events and concerts became more frequent. She was asked to collaborate with other talented musicians, each collaboration teaching her something new about harmony, rhythm, and improvisation. These experiences broadened her understanding of music and expanded her creativity. She learned to blend her style with others, creating performances that were rich, dynamic, and emotionally engaging. Through collaboration, she realized that music was not just an individual journey, but a shared experience that connected people across cultures and backgrounds. Despite her success, she never lost sight of her roots. She remembered the early days when the piano was a source of comfort, discovery, and personal growth. Those memories reminded her of the challenges she had faced and the determination that had brought her this far. She remained humble, understanding that talent alone was not enough. It was hard work, persistence, and the willingness to take risks that had allowed her to reach this point. This humility made her approachable, kind, and inspiring to those who looked up to her. She also began mentoring young students, especially those facing difficulties similar to hers. She taught them not only the technical aspects of playing the piano, but also the importance of perseverance, patience, and self-belief. She emphasized that challenges were opportunities for growth and that talent alone could not replace dedication and effort. By sharing her experiences, she provided guidance and encouragement, helping others find their voices through music. Mentoring became a source of fulfillment, allowing her to impact lives beyond her performances. Alongside teaching and performing, she explored new ways to express herself musically. She experimented with different genres, combining classical techniques with modern melodies, and incorporating rhythms and harmonies that reflected her own experiences. This experimentation allowed her to develop a unique style, one that resonated deeply with audiences and distinguished her from other musicians. Her creativity flourished as she pushed the boundaries of traditional piano music, blending emotion, technical skill, and personal storytelling in every piece. Traveling for performances also exposed her to new cultures, languages, and traditions. She listened to local musicians, observed different styles, and absorbed influences from the places she visited. Each experience enriched her understanding of music and deepened her appreciation for diversity. She realized that music was a universal language, capable of transcending barriers and connecting people in ways words could not. This perspective inspired her to create compositions that celebrated diversity, unity, and shared humanity. Challenges still arose, of course. Long journeys, demanding schedules, and high expectations sometimes caused stress and fatigue. There were moments when she questioned her abilities or feared that she might not meet the standards she set for herself. Yet she drew strength from her passion, her love for music, and the support of those who believed in her. She learned to balance her ambitions with self-care, ensuring that her performances remained genuine, heartfelt, and inspired. Each challenge became another opportunity to grow stronger. Both as a musician and as a person, her personal growth extended beyond music. She became more confident in expressing her ideas, making decisions, and pursuing goals in all areas of life. She discovered a sense of independence and self-reliance that she had never known before. The discipline, focus, and resilience she had cultivated through music carried over into her everyday life, empowering her to face obstacles with courage and creativity. Her experiences taught her that determination and passion could transform limitations into strengths. She also began to use her music for social causes. Inspired by the idea that art could make a difference, she organized benefit concerts and collaborated with organizations that supported education, disability rights, and access to the arts. Through her performances, she raised awareness, funds, and hope for causes she cared about deeply. This work gave her a sense of purpose beyond personal achievement, reminding her that her talent could be a force for positive change in the world. As her reputation grew, media attention followed. Interviews, articles, and features highlighted her journey, her accomplishments, and her inspiring story. She remained grounded, focusing on the music rather than the fame. She understood that her story could motivate others, and she shared it openly, hoping to encourage those facing challenges to pursue their dreams relentlessly. The recognition she received was secondary to the joy of creating, performing, and inspiring others through her art. Through all these experiences, she continued to refine her craft. She studied advanced techniques, explored new musical forms, and challenged herself with increasingly complex compositions. Each day at the piano became a journey of discovery, a chance to learn, grow, and express herself in ways she had never imagined. The piano remained her constant companion, a source of joy, comfort, and creative fulfillment.